Chapter 4, Understanding Laws. Till now in the previous chapters, we have discussed about what is a parliament. Now moving on to the details of how a parliament works. The main duty of the parliament is to formulate laws. So the responsibility of formulating the laws is entrusted to the parliament, which we have discussed in the previous chapter. Now moving in to know how a law has been formulated, how we come to know that this law has changed, or are all laws applicable to all people? Is there any controversial law? If there are any controversies in the laws, whom to be approached? What is our responsibility as a citizen? How should we respond to this? All this we will be discussing in this chapter. Does laws apply to all? Laws apply to all in the similar manner. Why are we questioning this one? Earlier, India has experienced the colonial rule of the Britishers. Now moving in, after India attained its independence, the framers of the constitution do not want any kind of arbitrary rule existing in our country. So they have made it mandatory by making laws in the constitution that everybody is equal before the law. It can be a government official, a lawyer, a doctor, a common man, the president of the country, whoever does any mistake, irrespective of their position, their economical background, their caste, their color, their creed, whatever may be their background, whomever may be, he may be a famous personality in the society, he may be a film star, he may be a cricket star, whoever he is, he may be a government official holding a key position in the government, also should abide to the rules and regulations which are laid in the constitution. If anyone is found he is violating the rules and regulation, will be meted with the same punishment what is being met with a common man when he does any mistake. Even if the President of India is proven that he has done something wrong, the same kind of punishment would be given to him what is being given to a common man when he has done the same mistake. So there is no difference between individuals when they done any crime or any mistake. When they are doing any crime, the courts or the law checks only the crime what they have done, and the punishment will be given on the crime. The judgment will be given on the basis of the severity of the crime, not on the basis of the background, not on the basis of the caste, not on the basis of color, not on the basis of creed. So in India we have the right to equality, where everybody has equal rights to access everything equally. At the same time, we also have rule of law. The rule of law means that the rule of law states clearly that any individual, he may be anyone, whoever does any crime, he is eligible for the same punishment which is prescribed in the constitution. It cannot be changing or varying according to his economic background or his social background. There are different examples for this. If any individual does crime, he should be punished under the same laws of the constitution which are meted if such kind of crimes are done by people. And in the ancient India, we can find the differences of the judgments for the same kind of crime done by different categories of people, because in the ancient period the people are divided into different castes or categories. Especially the higher caste people are exempted or very light punishments are given to them when they are doing any crime. If the similar crime is done by a lower caste person, then they are being given a severe punishment which is completely opposite to what the higher caste person has done, and the punishment has been meted to him. So these kind of variations you find in the ancient period of India. And during the British rule, do all laws are applicable to all equally? Does laws have any exemption to anyone? No, there is no exemption given to any particular category people or any high profile people in the society will not be considered in courts. According to the court, everybody is equal, everybody is a citizen of the country. But when we look in the experiences of the past, in the ancient India, we have seen the judgments are given basing on the caste, basing on the color, basing on the religion. So all these made us to understand that there is no equality during the ancient societies of our country. And moving on further into the details, especially during the British rule, that is, during the British rule, there were colonial laws. The colonial laws were arbitrary. The law was completely arbitrary in nature. As we saw in the introduction of the lesson itself, that the Constitution want a ruler not to be arbitrary. So this arbitrary rule should not exist in future in our country. Why? Because during the British rule, we have faced that one. We have seen the severity of that. We have seen how the Indian people voices are being crushed off using these laws. How the Indians are beaten up without any reason when they were asking for their own rights in their own country. So all these things made the framers to understand the necessity of having certain laws in place which brings equality and earns respect to every citizen. Now moving into the details of the British rule. Britishers made many laws which were arbitrary in nature, and if any of the Indians tried to oppose them or ask or object them, the Indians were brought into custody. That was also a special act was passed, that is the Sedition Act of 1870, through which anybody in the entire country who is protesting against the British rule can be arrested and imprisoned without any trial and can be tortured for many days. So these kind of laws reveal for us that during the British rule there was no equality. The Indians have struggled a lot. If you look at the example of Rosa Parks in United States, where she has denied to give her seat to the white man when he demanded. She is fighting against segregation between the blacks and the whites in the United States, where she was facing severe criticism in the early days, but she was the one who first started to revolt against the US segregation laws. It was only after her moment what she started, the civil rights movement gained knowledge and ground, and slowly now the laws are being brought to get everyone in the lines of equality. So like this, any incidents which have happened in the history becomes a strong base for us to make laws. Britishers have created many laws, especially to target the Indians who are fighting for independence, to imprison them, to arrest them, to torture them, or to deny them giving the right to assemble, the right to conduct meetings. So all these things make us to understand what are the problems of the arbitrary rule or the arbitrary laws which are in place prior to India attained its independence. And now we can see the Hindu Succession Amendment Act of 2005. The Hindu Succession Act was amended in 2005, which entitles the wife and the children the equal rights of succession of the husband's property. Like this, the laws are not giving any exemption to anyone. In a similar way, the laws which are framed are from the past experiences which we have drawn for our country, which the country has experienced, faced and suffered under the colonial rule. So, in the independent India, the framers of the constitution do not want any laws which have brought troubles to the people. Now, moving on to a fundamental question. From where does the laws come? Who formulates the laws? How can a new law be formulated? Chapter 5, Judiciary. We will now discuss what are the duties, the functions of the judicial department. But before going into the details, if you remember, Indian Constitution has divided the duties of making the laws, executing the laws, and checking whether the laws are implemented properly or not, and doing justice to the people to settle the disputes, was given to 3 different departments based on US based model. It is legislative, executive and judiciary. This was a replica of US model of administration. The US has adopted this division of legislative, executive and judiciary based on Montesquieu's book of The Spirit of Laws. So according to this book written by Montesquieu, the US government has decided to divide the responsibilities of administration, like to make the laws was been handed over to the legislature, that is the legislative bodies, to execute the laws which are made by the legislature to the executives, that is the president, the in charge persons like governor, ministers, senators, everyone. And moving on to understand, to settle any kind of disputes between the people and also between the legislature, between the executive and the judiciary, checking it without turning it into an arbitrary system. Because in legislature, for example in India, we have the Prime Minister being a member of the legislative and leader of the House of Lok Sabha, and he is the executive here. So when he is the member of the House and he is the head of the Sabha and he is an executive, there is a possibility to behave arbitrarily and making the laws according to his interest or according to his concerns, which may not be in the favor of the people. So in order to check and arrest these kind of situations, judiciary has been given enormous powers. The Judicial Department of India works on various other topics, like Indian judiciary. The Supreme Court can pass laws stating that a teacher cannot beat a student, a government cannot put a certain tax, it can also put certain new restrictions, like government cannot interfere in certain actions of the people, certain religious customs of the people. It can also sometimes strike off the acts which are passed by the government if they are violating the basic rights of the citizens. Like this, the Indian judiciary has the enormous responsibility and acts as the custodian of the fundamental rights of its citizens. What is the role of Indian judiciary? So when it comes to the role of the Indian judiciary, as we discussed till now, it has enormous responsibility. It settles the disputes between the people, between the states, between any two parties. Sometimes it interprets the laws. Sometimes it gives judgments which are very serious issues or concerns in the society. Moving on to understand the details of what are the basic responsibilities of the judiciary. The Indian judiciary plays an important role in first settling the disputes, that is, the dispute resolutions. The disputes can be between an individual with another individual, between a group of individuals versus another single individual. It can be an individual versus a state government. It can be a section of people against the government. It can be two states, one state government versus the other state government, like Telangana versus Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka versus Tamil Nadu. It can also be 2-3 states together versus the other state, like for example Maharashtra versus Andhra, Telangana and Karnataka states together. Sometimes states versus the union government. Some states like Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh together against the union government, or the Delhi government against the union government, or an individual against the High Court or against the Supreme Court, against the union government. So it can be a dispute between one individual versus the other individual, one individual with the other group of individuals, a group of individuals versus the other group of individuals, an individual versus the state government, an individual versus couple of state governments, couple of state governments versus group of individuals, an individual versus the union government, an individual versus the authority of the government. Like this, the disputes can be from any corner to any corner, to any level, there can be a dispute. So it is the utmost responsibility of the Supreme Court to settle the disputes, to bring resolutions in these disputes. This is the first main duty entrusted to the Supreme Court of our country. The second, the judicial review. This is another significant authority given to our Supreme Court. Supreme Court acts and checks the authority of the legislature as well as the executive. If the legislature is formulating any laws which are going to stand against the interest of the public, or at some sense violating the basic rights of the people, then that law can be struck off by the Supreme Court. If a government passes any law like cannot choose any profession of your choice, you have to choose a profession in the lineage of what your father has done or what your great grandfather has done, but not any other new profession, which means that the right to equality opportunities has been violated for that individual. So when the violation is happening, this can be reported to the Supreme Court or the State High Court, which government has passed this law, because it's clearly violating the fundamental right of the citizens. So these kind of laws can be struck off by the Supreme Court or the State High Courts. This authority to strike off the laws which are passed by the state governments or the union governments is known as judicial review. So this is another significant power and duty given to our Supreme Court. And the third one, uphold the laws and enforce the fundamental rights. As I told you just now, it not only strikes off the laws which are against the fundamental rights. If there are any violation of the fundamental rights happening, the Supreme Court takes the responsibility and ensures that the justice happens there. How is it possible? Like, for example, Hakim Sheikh, who is an agricultural laborer. By mistake, he fell down from a running train and he got hurt. But he was taken to number of hospitals. The hospitals have rejected to give him health aid. So with this, he was in trouble. So finally, when he reported this to the government, many of the officials of the government did not respond properly. Then the issue was taken to the notice of the High Court of West Bengal. Paschim Bengal workers versus West Bengal in 1996. When the issue was discussed and debated, the High Court gave a strict judgment saying that the compensation, the loss which was incurred to the Hakim Sheikh has to be paid back, and the government also should come up with a blueprint to help the individuals who are in needy, who require the medical help at times of accidents, at times of emergencies. It also told that denying the medical aid to them at times of emergency is denying the right to livelihood for them, denying the right to equality. Equal treatment has not been meted to them. Right to life has been violated to them. The Article 121 of the Constitution, which contains the fundamental rights, has been seriously violated. So the West Bengal government has to pay compensation and should also enforce a mechanism to ensure that anyone who is in need, who is requiring the medical aid, should be provided without any hindrances. Like this, the Supreme Court or the Indian judicial system has the main responsibilities like dispute resolution, judicial review, upholding the law and enforcing the fundamental rights, which we have seen in example of Hakim Sheikh, where an agricultural laborer got hurt when he fell down from a running train, and later the consequences, he could not get medical aid when it is required for him in time. So later the case went on to the High Court. The court gave a judgment in the favor of Hakim Sheikh, upholding the Article 21 of the fundamental rights. These are the basic duties and the responsibilities of the Indian judicial system. Chapter 6. Understanding our criminal justice system. In this chapter, we will be discussing what is the role of the judicial system and how do we utilize that one. We generally watch in movies the police coming and arresting the people. We assume that the police is having the rights or the duties to arrest the people. Yes, but they don't decide who is guilty or who is the accused. They generally arrest the people on whomever the allegations are made. So in this chapter, we will be discussing about what is the role of the police in investigating the crimes and how we should approach them, what is the procedure that has to be followed, how the police has to react, what is the role of the inspector or the police department in ensuring to get justice to the people, and how the courts work. We generally hear the word called FIR. In this chapter, we will be discussing what is FIR and what is the role of a court. In the court, how the procedure of the case takes place, who from the government side takes the responsibility and investigates the case, who from the accused side will be defending him. So here we come to know about the prosecutor and the defense lawyer so all these we will be discussing through an example, through a fictional story, how an incident happened and how the situations would go on. We generally find in our society different kind of fictional stories which are similar to the realities what are happening. How a thing happens, how do the people react for that, how do the police react for that, how the situations take turns, these all we will be discussing through a fictional story which are very similar to that in the real life situations. And when we discuss this kind of things, you may be aware of how to react if ever these kind of situations arise in your life. Now let us look at an example. In the story, the fictional story, the date was 18/7/2006. Mr. and Mrs. Shinde are getting ready for a party. So when Mrs. Shinde is trying to decorate herself with her jewelry, she finds one of her chain is missing. She notices that she searches in the entire dressing table and all the lockers, in the safe, everywhere. Mr. Shinde comes in running saying that we are already late, so please dress up yourself properly and make it fast. So when you dress yourself fast, we can move out so that we can attend the party in time. But Mrs. Shinde conveys the message that she could not find her gold chain which they have brought recently from the market, which they have purchased recently. So he asks her, who other than else can come into this room, the outsiders, other than her maid or their maid? Nobody comes in. The maid name is Shanti, Mrs. Shanti, who has been working in Mumbai in Mr. and Mrs. Shinde's house for the past 3 years. She has never done this kind of acts. That's what Mrs. Shinde was trying to convince Mr. Shinde. But Mr. Shinde approached to Miss Shanti and asked her to show her trunk. Immediately, show me your trunk. The chain has been missing. So where did you keep the chain? Did you take the chain? What happened with the chain? Like this, the shower of the questions has been rained on Mrs. Shanti. Mrs. Shanti was telling to Mrs. Shinde that she has not even seen the chain properly. She never know that there is a chain which has been kept in the dressing table, and she cried. But when they opened the trunk of Mrs. Shanti, they found 10,000 rupees in a sealed envelope. So they got doubt. They assumed that Miss Shanti has sold the chain and made it into cash and saved that money in the trunk. So Mrs. Shanti and her brother are been saving the money from the past 6 to 7 months. She gets every month 1,000 rupees, while her brother also works in a factory and he also gets around some 1,500 per month. So they want to save this money and they want to buy a bull after going home back to their village. So they are saving this money for the future purpose. Mr. and Mrs. Shinde misunderstood that they have snatched the gold chain and they have sold it, and now they are saving this money. That's what he understood, and he rushed to the nearby police station. So after reaching the police station, Mr. Shinde met the SI, the sub-inspector of police, and told the entire thing what happened that his wife could not find the gold chain which was kept in her drawer and could not locate it anywhere in the house, and they have a doubt on their maid, Mrs. Shanti, and they also found rupees 10,000 in an envelope in her trunk. So immediately SI has registered the FIR of the information given by Mr. Shinde. Once the information has been registered, we get the FIR. FIR stands for First Information Register. First Information Report. Once Mr. Shinde has reported in the police station, the SA has recorded the FIR, the first information report, and then Mr. Shinde comes back home accompanied by the SI. The SI comes and checks everything, the house, the surroundings, and also the trunk of Miss Shanti, and takes her into custody. So now Miss Shanti has been arrested. And taken to the prison. So once this entire thing has happened, in the evening, Ms. Shanti's brother Sushil has come and he approached the SI asking to release her, and she is very innocent. We both are innocent. We don't know anything about the chain, about what you are talking about. We are not aware of that chain. We are actually saving our money from the past 5 to 6 months. Our salaries we are saving and we are preserving for the future purpose. We want to buy a bull when we go back into their village. So kindly release her. But the SA was very angry and told that she has been in the case of theft. She has been booked in the case of theft. So you go to court and get the bail paper for her. Then only I can release her. This issue was very serious, so he seriously requested him. The angered SA has imprisoned Sushil also and tortured him for 2 days, asking him to agree that he has done the theft, that they have taken back the gold, and he is a leader of a group of the maids who steal the costly things there in that region or in that area, because he is also getting a number of complaints like this. But this fellow cried innocently that I don't know anything, I am an innocent person and I work for an industry, and my duty, I attend to my duty and come back and take rest. Other than this, I am not aware of what is happening in that area also. Finally, after 2 days, he was left out. So he was thrown out from the police station, but he could not find any reason to get her relieved, because the entire money also was sealed by the police. What the 10,000 they have saved, that money also was sealed by the police and kept in the register, and the police have kept it very safely, where now it cannot be used. So without doing anything, Ms. Shanti was waiting and she was worried what will be happening in the court, and she never know what is the chain about also.